All right, I call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, June 18th. As you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can't remember the last time we actually said the pledge in here. It's usually going into a closed session here. So thanks everybody for being here tonight. We will adopt our agenda and then we'll begin public address. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Okay, so I think we do the motion. No, wait. Yeah, we do the motion, and then in discussion, you added, we amended, all that good stuff. So I need a motion and a second?
So moved.
Dr. Roundtree, Ms. Bond? Any discussion? Ms. Franklin?
To add an item to the agenda, to have a discussion around the N-word. This was some part of the discussion of the strategic plan 2 weeks ago, and I would like to focus on this.
Okay. So those who made the motion, are you comfortable with making that amendment?
Yes.
Yes.
I also have a question. So I had asked about an item that's in closed session, of whether it should be in closed session or open session. And I'm sorry, I wasn't able to follow up with you.
Yeah.
I was in Lexington today. So if we're contemplating a possible change to board policy, even if it affects a minuscule percentage of the community, I think that any discussion around that should be in open rather than in closed session. So there are a couple of different ways if there's concerns about any privacy of doing that. But if there is contemplation, my understanding is that should be a discussion in open session.
Well, the closed session item was to discuss the student matter itself.
Okay.
That's precipitating a consideration of a policy change, but we don't have to discuss the policy change in closed.
Oh, so we're not going to discuss the policy change today? Oh, okay. Thank you for that clarification. I didn't know that from some of the information.
Some, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we have agreement to amend the motion to include the additional agenda topic. Any other discussion on the agenda? Okay, great. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gittrey?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes,
7 in favor.
motion carries. Sorry, I should have clarified. Are we okay if that's just add to the end of the agenda? Is that, okay, fine. Okay, great. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Osborne will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. Clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers we get to address the board. I'll call each speaker up by name in the order that they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Please state your name and the area of the county you live in. And the first speaker is Courtney Roberts. In fact, you're the only speaker, so.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Courtney Roberts. I am a mother of 3 kids here in Montgomery County Schools. I have 2 little ones at Beeks, and I have 1 rising sophomore at Blacksburg High. But I'm taking off my mom cap today and coming to address you as a criminal defense attorney in Blacksburg, specifically as a criminal defense attorney who represents, on a court-appointed basis, students at Montgomery County Schools who have been brought before the juvenile and domestic relations courts here on essentially truancy charges. You don't really charge a child. They're called children in need of supervision petitions. But they get an attorney because they are looking at some pretty serious threats to their liberty, including being held in detention. On very extreme cases, they can even have custody changes ordered, foster care sent along, and have them removed from their parent or guardian's custody. So obviously, I take my role in that part of the system very seriously. And it really affects my ability to do my job when I don't have communication from the school system. And I'm coming to you today because I'm pretty upset to find out that y'all are losing Ann Guthrie, who's been our truancy officer this past year. I've had the privilege of working with her this past year, and I have found her progress in that position to be leaps and bounds beyond my experience, where I was essentially just showing up on the court date and hoping that the existing truancy officer would share with me some information that I could actually share with my client. But then the end result being is that I had a child who was there just meeting me for the first time, maybe even not having really any sense of what's going on, maybe willing to go along for the sake of not being put in detention or not being taken away from his parents, but really having no actual buy-in. With Ann's system of reporting to me, I can share that with my client in advance. They can come to the courts actually knowing what's going to happen and having some real buy-in and personal investment in their own success. And that's really making a huge difference in my observations. I feel strongly that you're losing people like Ann and other employees in this school system because you're missing out on their reporting of their complaints. Dr. Bregan, I brought this to your attention, and you told me it was the first time you were hearing of it, and I absolutely. But I believe that there is a chink in this system's armor, and I believe that those messages are not getting to you in advance. And I think that as the superintendent, it falls on you to figure out where that chink is and do something about it. So I'm asking you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts. Okay. Our next speaker is Betty Thomas.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Betty Thomas. I use these her pronouns and I live in Christiansburg. I would like to just take this moment to say Happy Pride Month.
Okay, thank you, Betty. And with that, I see no more public address signups, so public address is closed. Next up are our consent items. If no one wishes to move an item out of consent, we will consider these items approved. Okay, great. Next up are the financial reports. Do I have a motion to acknowledge receipt of the financial summary report for May 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Bond and Ms. Franklin? Any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Dr. Gitcher?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Chair Hudson. I only got a few things to report. You know, the first thing is that people often think of schools in the summertime as being inactive and not a lot going on, when it could almost, nothing could be farther from the truth, actually, because our summer programs are in full swing for those students that are attending for enrichment or for support. And we have capital projects occurring throughout the entire school district that summer provides us that opportunity to get those things done that we can't do when the schools are in session. In addition to that, I want to commend our HR department and all the people and administrators involved in the hiring process. We are doing an extensive amount of hiring to make sure we have certificated and appropriate staff in each of our classrooms and all our support personnel in place. And today alone, I think I interviewed almost 10 people, and that's been an ongoing basis. And, you know, when you get to me, that's the culmination of a lot of people's efforts in the interview process and moving them forward. And I'm just the final, interview before we move on. So kudos to our HR department. They're doing a great job and a lot of hard work behind the scenes to make that happen, putting in a lot of hours and spending a lot of overtime here on the weekends and on days we're not supposed to be in session. So I'm really proud of their efforts and grateful for them as well. Next meeting on July 30th is our next board meeting. I plan to have our capital plan to present in front of you. We'll probably have one of our architects here with us to talk about proposed projects throughout the division. I'm sure that'll spark some robust discussion, but it'll give us a framework and give some monetary values to what those potential improvements may or may not look like. And I'm sure that'll just be the starting point, but I look forward to bringing that to all of you. And the last thing is all our schools are closed tomorrow in honor of Juneteenth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bragan. Next up, due to the July break for the school board, the superintendent will need to be able to hire and appoint employees during that time to prepare for the start of school. The school board will review appointments from this time at their July 30th meeting. Do I have a motion to authorize the superintendent to hire and appoint employees between June 18th and July 30th, 2024, while the school board is on break?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Bond and Ms. Parton, any discussion? Okay. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
No.
Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
6 in favor, 1 opposed.
Motion carries. Next up, the administration presented the MCPS student cell phone use policy on June 4th, 2024. The policy is brought back for approval tonight. Do I have a motion to approve the student cell phone use policy as presented?
Yes.
Second. Quite sure what I needed.
Dr. Roundtree and Ms. Purcell? And discussion.
Yeah, so I think with the implementation of this, we just need to be very observant of those that need cell phones for medical reasons or IEP reasons and whatnot. I think we have the appropriate protections in place for that, but we need to make sure that that it's implemented with those protections in mind.
So I agree. I would really like to see this implemented on our buses also. However, I really do want to know how the training is going to take place, what it's going to consist of, to make sure that we have all the bases covered, and that the public understands that we have gotten this under control. So those students who need to have their cell phones, they will have those, and it will not become an issue for them.
And I was reading on here, and I was thinking that we had struck this, but maybe I don't know. The possession of cell phones where the second, or part of the second sentence, they must be turned off and stored out of sight during the instructional day unless a staff member gives express permission for educational purpose or in cases of emergency. I have no problem with in cases of emergency, but I do think that's kind of where we kind of got into that gray margin in years past, because they were being allowed to use it for educational purposes, and all students have Chromebooks. So that's my only issue with that right there. I think that's murky waters, and if we're going to do it, we need to do it. We don't need to say, well, and because you're going to have a certain teacher who may say, hey, you can do this, and let's look on our phone. Let's, just someone who's, and that's, well, hey, I was in this class and they allowed us to do it. Well, how come you can't? Well, I guess if they can, well, I guess it's all. I just think that's murky waters and treading. I was thinking that we had taken that out, so.
Point well taken. You know, if you look at that, the second part of that sentence, it says, though, with prior permission granted by the school principal. So that takes the burden off of a teacher, that the teacher doesn't have the sole authority to say, I can or cannot do that, because what we heard from some of our staff members was they didn't want to have that burden on them. But if you want to strike that altogether, there may be instances where it's appropriate for students to use their cell phones. Can't think of a specific incident right now, but I don't know that for sure. But that was the idea, that should one of those situations occur, we still do have that latitude, but it's not Bernie Bragan. The teacher just says, hey, it's okay for everyone. I got to get prior written permission from the building principal, and I think that would limit it. But hey, this is a board policy. I'm open, to changes that you all see fit.
I think I saw that part.
I mean, I can certainly think of some of the more technology courses in our schools in which access to a cell phone could be handy. For instance, the Chromebooks don't have GPS, right? And there are use cases where you care about the GPS, right? Or the phone or the camera capability, perhaps. I'm guessing based on some of the courses that I know are in the schools, but I don't disagree with Ms. Bond. I mean, I think it needs to be, honestly, I think all of this falls apart if the processes aren't followed from the teachers all the way up to the administrators, right? So if one teacher gives an allowance for any reason without approval, then the whole thing falls apart, right? So if there's an approval process that ensures that it's a valid use, then I'm okay with that at least.
Yeah,
But-
I just think if even if it was permitted in that first of the cell phone use, then on the possession of the cell phones, it should be cited there too. I mean, as long as we don't have someone pulling out, kind of like I just did this one section, and didn't read the section before, which we hear all the time. People like to pull out policy pieces and not read all of it. So that's kind of where I'm coming from but if I'm the only one that thinks that, then.
No,
You're not the only one, Jamie.
You're not alone.
Well, I understand totally, but I guess,
mean,
does
so-
the majority of the board think we should amend that?
Yeah, right.
Granted, but. Permission so.
Yeah, so at this point, we have a motion on the table, so if there are edits that we want to postulate, individual board members
Right.
can suggest motions to make edits. So that's where we're at. If you want to, so in that case, I could see a couple of options. You could either try to strike it entirely or make sure that language is consistent throughout, right? So the only time that, where we have that prior permission granted by the principal, that's got to be in all places that
Right.
we mentioned they're allowed.
Well, that is the only place that's mentioned, I think, in this document. So
Do what? Was there a second? Yeah.
In that follow-up paragraph, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
because didn't have to have. If somebody could pull that one piece out and they didn't follow up with the previous one, well, I'll get forgiveness later for it, and I'm gonna go ahead and just act like I didn't see that one. And I just think that could cause some issues.
So I'll make a motion that the written permission of the principal be reflected throughout the policy wherever it is to be used for instructional use. You can sniff that
Have
one
a
up.
second?
For thought, I don't know, would we want to put something to the intent of like a special circumstance? The word's not coming to me right now. Or no?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Like, instead of just permission granted from the school principal for educational or emergency purposes, extenuating circumstances. I don't know. Like I said, I just think it could be murky waters there because everybody has Chromebooks. So why would we need phones for educational purposes?
Okay, so we have, Ms. Franklin has a motion. Actually, I guess to do it correctly, go back to the original folks who made the original motion to see if they're fine with amending their motion to include that edit.
I'm good with it.
And who made the second?
Laura?
Okay, okay. Okay, so currently we have the motion with the amendment to modify, to ensure that prior permission granted from the school principal is incorporated whenever there are educational needs.
I have a couple of questions. First, is this the same, this isn't the same document that was originally in board's doc, is it?
Originally, meaning the
When-
last June meeting?
No. When we got the notification about today's meeting, or am I mistaken? Is this the same document that was initially uploaded for this meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I must have looked at the wrong, that was part of the confusion. I must have looked at the last session. The one question I do have is there an intent to incorporate this into the official board's policy, board policies? Because if you have student conduct policy that already has cell phones, then I think I would ask that this be incorporated into that official board policy so we don't have two separate policies, particularly since there are disciplinary consequences that are in this policy.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ed. There was conversation from the superintendent to try to get our wishes on that because it wasn't certain. I think as a board, we need to make that decision. If we want this new language to replace what's currently in policy in the student code of conduct, right? It's got that current block on cell phones, to replace it with this. Or if we want this to be a separate policy, and we probably still need to update the code of conduct in order to reflect it, right? So they're not consistent. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the cell phone policy. Yeah. So the other goes away if we adopt this.
Yeah, just like in the code of conduct. Yes, absolutely.
So, but the question is, I mean, just to be clear, right? So are we adding this as a separate policy with its own number? I'm not sure what number it would be, with its own standalone number, or does this just replace the cell phone section in the current student code of conduct? I think I'm hearing the latter is what we want to do, because we already have a statement on that, and we don't want them to be inconsistent. I don't see value in having it in two places, in the code of conduct and as a standalone policy, but that's a decision that we need to make as a board, so we're all on the same page.
If we're truly trying to make a statement about what we're doing here, then this needs to be
In the
a
code of
policy,
conduct.
which is, I thought that's what we were doing, right? Which means anytime we're talking about the cell phone policy, this is what it would be. It just is very confusing to have two different, a policy and a statement.
Yeah, I
Why
agree.
would you do that?
Yeah.
The code of conduct is in our policy.
Right, so if we're saying this is now our cell phone policy, then that's the
Yes,
policy
that's
that
right.
should be a part of the code of conduct.
That's
Okay,
right.
that's fine.
Absolutely, I agree.
That's fine. That's what we were trying to get clear on, as opposed to it being a standalone policy.
Well, it is a standalone policy, but if we're referring to cell phones in our code of conduct, this is the policy that should be in there.
So you're suggesting that the code of conduct should point to this policy number
Right, it should.
and have nothing else in there, it just cell phones refer to this policy number or
Right.
policy on cell phones.
Why
Yeah.
would we do?
I don't
anything
disagree with
else?
that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's two separate things, and that's what we need to be,
Right.
that's what we need to agree on, right? So. I guess it gets a little bit challenging, right? Because we give that student code of conduct out like we Like that's like a printed thing in some cases. I've seen copies of it, right? We can't then refer to another policy and assume that it's all going to be there, right? If you want it to be in the code of conduct, it needs to be in the code of conduct.
I think we could include both. If you look at the policy on the code of conduct, there are a number of things that are delineated in there with specificity that do reference, while it's listed in there, it also references the policy. Expulsions, student suspensions, a number of different things are in the code of conduct, and then they reference policy 7.22 as well.
Okay.
So if, as an administrator, what matters to me is that we have somewhere in policy that we're backing up what we're doing, right? Which is to ban cell phone use by students during the course of the school day. I think it might be beneficial to have that redundancy. It's in the code of conduct, here it is, and we're referencing the separate policy here that says the statement from the school board that you created a specific policy dealing with this specific problem, but it's still in the code of conduct as part of the disciplinary consequences as well.
Okay.
That makes sense to me, but this is, the school board decides on those policies.
Absolutely, I agree 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, when parents or students go to the policy, there's the navigation bar on the left, that there's cell phone policy on that navigation
Right
bar.
there.
They don't have to dig down into other sections.
And you do have people that will refer to the code of conduct thinking that is policy. So this way, it, enables both, so.
Okay.
So at the next meeting, could the administration bring forward, assign a new policy number and bring to the board the changes to the student conduct policy that points to the other, so that we have both?
Absolutely. And one of the differences with the code of conduct policy is that parents each year sign off that they've read that. We don't have that for other policies, so it would be important to have this in there.
Yes.
And then reference somewhere else as well. I think that makes 100% sense.
We can also make sure we reiterate that quite clear at back to school night once again.
Oh, yeah.
So we can do that there as well.
That's right. Okay. Board, any other comments? We have a motion and a second on the floor with some amended language there that we approved. So any other discussion? Okay. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin? Yes. Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. All right, next up, the proposed division literacy plan was presented for the board's consideration on June 4th. The board is asked to approve the plan tonight. All school divisions are required to submit their plans to the VDOE by July 1st. Dr. Barbara Wickham, our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, is available to answer any questions. Do I have a motion to approve the division literacy plan as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Roundtree and Ms. Parton. Any discussion?
Just one question. And I should have asked it last time, but there was a lot I was trying to process. On section 5 for assessment, one question I do have is, there are a number of community members who have expressed concern about the number of days and hours that are committed to assessments. How much does this increase assessments at the expense of instructional hours? This might be very difficult to quantify at this point, but it's just something I noticed. I was like, there's a lot of assessment. How does that compare to what we're currently doing?
So these are all things that we are currently giving, with the exception of VALS. And this year, the VALS assessment replaces PALS. So it's a requirement from the state.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions or discussion? Okay. Hearing none. Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Yes. Dr. Gitchery?
Yes.
Ms. Barton,
Yes.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Roundtree,
Yes.
Mr. Hudson.
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. Next up, Dr. Thomas Brewster, our Assistant Director for Human Resources, will present proposed revisions to the sick leave bank policy based on recommendations from the Sick Leave Bank Committee.
Okay. Chairman Hudson, members of the board, Dr. Bragan, thank you for the opportunity to present the proposed changes for the first reading tonight to Board Policy Section 5 Personnel, Article 7 Employee Pay and Fringe Benefits, Employee Absences/Leave, specifically aspects of the policy related to the sick leave bank. These changes were recommended by our Sick Leave Bank Committee, which, per board policy, is composed of 4 teachers, 1 administrator, 1 service department employee, 1 clerical support employee, and a director of human resources who serves as a non-voting ex officio member. The goal of these changes is to modify the sick leave bank policy for employees in the VRS hybrid plan. The revisions to this policy would allow VRS hybrid plan employees to use sick bank days for serious long-term illnesses or injury of their qualified family members, while their own serious or long-term conditions will be covered by short-term disability. Currently, VRS hybrid plan employees do not have coverage for serious or long-term illness or injury of qualified family members through their short-term disability benefits. Right now, we have approximately 695 hybrid employees who would be eligible to participate in the sick leave bank, a number that will continue to grow as new employees are hired into the system. The remaining employees are VRS Plan 1 and Plan 2 employees whose employment began prior to January 1st, 2014. These employees are not eligible for short-term disability through VRS. Since hybrid plan employees must wait 1 year from the hire date before eligibility for short-term disability benefits begin, these employees are eligible for sick leave bank immediately, while VRS Plan 1 and Plan 2 employees must wait 6 months to access days from the sick leave bank. The intent of the sick leave bank is to provide some protection for employees who experience or whose covered family members experience catastrophic or long-term illness. To use the sick leave bank, employees must apply to the Director of Human Resources. They must first deplete their own sick, personal, and wellness leave. If they have more than 5 annual leave days, all but 5 must be used first. The initial 5 consecutive days of uncovered illness must be taken as unpaid leave. An employee tier is based on their membership duration. Each fiscal year, eligible employees can draw from the sick leave bank based upon their years of enrollment. For example, 15 days in the first year, 20 days in the second year, and 30 days in the third year and beyond. These proposed recommendations aim to provide an option for our hybrid employees to access sick leave bank days beyond the initial year of employment for the critical health needs of their family members. For their own long-term or catastrophic health insurances issues, hybrid plan employees will continue to have short-term disability coverage. The cost implications include a slight increase in administrative tasks to manage the processing and tracking of donated sick leave days and ensuring eligibility criteria are met. Additionally, there may be an uptick in the usage of sick leave bank days due to the extended eligibility for family member care, potentially increasing our utilization rates. A key part of implementing these changes is an intentional plan to communicate with hybrid employees. It is important to inform all current hybrid employees about the policy change so they can understand the new benefits. Additionally, former hybrid employees should be notified so they can sign up for this benefit during our upcoming open enrollment period. The communication strategy will use various channels such as email updates and virtual information meetings to ensure that all eligible employees are aware and can take advantage of this change. To conclude, the proposed revisions to the sick leave bank policy support our strategic aim of attracting and retaining outstanding faculty, staff, and leaders by offering better support for employees dealing with serious health insurance issues with their families, within their families. By allowing VRS hybrid plan employees to use sick leave bank days for family members' illnesses after the first year of employment and relying on short-term disability for their own needs, the policy promotes efficient and balanced resource use. These revisions recommended by our Sick Leave Bank Committee are an important step toward improving employee well-being and fostering a supportive work environment. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to hearing your feedback and questions about the proposed changes.
Thank you, Dr. Brewster. Board, any questions?
Well, I'll just say anything we can do to help support our employees, that's a good thing, and this is a huge benefit. So how are sick leave days added to the sick bank? I had an employee who was getting ready to leave the district question if unused vacation days could be donated back to the sick leave days, sick leave bank.
Right now, the policy doesn't outline provisions to make that happen for retiring employees to donate their days to the sick leave bank.
Okay. I think that's something we might want to, or we should look at. If folks are leaving and they have days they haven't used, they're going to be paid for them correctly. Correct? I'm talking somehow tonight. Anyway, they're going to get paid for those days, right? So if they want to donate those back to help their former co-workers, we should be able to do that. No problem with that.
Interesting one to think about, for sure.
So I would like to see something along that line brought back to the board at some point. I hope I'm not the only one. Okay.
Thank you.
You're not the only one, but also it wasn't clear, how are days accumulated in the bank?
Right now, an employee will donate 1 day initially when they enter the bank, and then if we drop below 200 days, there's an assessment of 1 day of all employees in the bank.
Okay.
And we did the most recent assessment back in February to replenish our days.
Okay.
So if we were to allow folks to donate back vacation days as they were leaving, that could help alleviate the other employees having to put more of their time back into the sick bank, correct?
It could.
Because it would increase the days.
Yes.
How many employees currently participate?
Right now, and I'm going to pull that information up. Right now, we have 663 currently participating in the sick leave bank. The number of unencumbered days that we have in the sick leave bank right now is 749.
How often do we drop below that 200 number and require a donation of day?
I don't know the answer to that historically, but I do know that back in February, we did drop below that number and did an assessment of our employees, but I don't know the frequency, but I can find that out and get you the information.
And when a member employee needs to request to withdraw from the bank, about how often, I mean, I guess that's a unpredictable number, but generally about how often does that occur, or?
I think it occurs quite often. We have employees who, experience some type of hardship and have to rely on those sick leave bank days in order to continue their employment. And we have had situations where, our hybrid employees have run across hardships involving immediate family members or qualifying family members, and they've exhausted their days and not been covered by short-term disability.
Thank you.
Board will keep going around. Ms. Bond, any questions? Ms. Pardon?
So can you explain the difference to me between this and FMLA that the employees are able to take?
FMLA deals with long-term disability. If an employee has an extended amount of leave, then that FMLA would take hold. This is short-term disability. This is under 125 days.
Okay. And I believe in the policy it says within their families, but yet families aren't distinctly noted as what's considered family. Are you talking immediate family? Are you talking like a spouse, a child, or what's considered a family member?
It's actually in the policy, and it's fairly extensive. And let me see if I can find it. Yeah, the term immediate family shall be regarded to include mother, father, foster parents, adoptive parents, stepmother, stepfather, grandparents, etc. So it's
The grandparents are in there as immediate?
Yes.
Okay.
And it is quite, it's outlined here in the policy, and it's quite extensive.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Guthrie?
I don't have any questions.
I guess I was curious, it's kind of a two-part question. Is this concept of sick bank, is this common in other divisions?
That's interesting, because I think one of the things that was left off the table back in 2016 was, how to cover catastrophic family illnesses for hybrid employees. And it was one of the things that our sick leave bank felt strongly about, closing the loop on. But I'm not sure if other school divisions have done that.
Okay.
But I could certainly look into that to see.
That was kind of going to be my question. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of anything we can do to differentiate ourselves from other divisions, right? It makes us look better.
Certainly,
more
I think it
attractive
would.
employer. Yeah, definitely.
Chair Hudson, in the divisions I worked in New Jersey, both had it, the sick bank.
Okay.
And there was always a process similar to what Dr. Brewster mentioned for donating days and as well as for getting days out. And a committee was formed in order to manage those.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, the only question I had before I read the presentation was the impact on cost, right? So, yeah, good to see that that's not a deal breaker. Hey, board, any other questions?
From Ms. Parton's question on FMLA, so FMLA is unpaid leave, where this is paid leave. So that's a big difference, too.
I think it's a percentage, though,
It's a
FMLA, until you
percentage.
get down, depending on how long you've been here.
Yeah, and short-term disability is the same. It's a percentage based upon how long someone has been there, anywhere from, 60% to 100% of the salary is covered. And with, particularly with short-term disability, there's work-related injuries that are handled differently than non-work-related injuries when it comes to short-term disability.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Brewster.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next up, over the spring of the 2023-24 academic year, MCPS, a curriculum administrator for science, conducted textbook reviews in accordance with the Code of Virginia and the Virginia Department of Education textbook review and approval process. The process included opportunities for science teachers, students, parents, and community members to review the textbooks under consideration and provide feedback. The adoption committees recommended the following textbooks be adopted for 6 years for the indicated courses: Chemistry 2, Forensic Science, AP Environmental Science, D, AP Biology, D, AP Chemistry, and D, AP Physics. Mr. Tony Deibler, our administrator for Science Curriculum and Library, is available to answer any questions. This is information only, no action expected tonight. Any questions on the science textbook adoption?
I have one question.
Sure.
Can't resist. Now, I'll wait for you if you want to come up. Thank you. So when I looked at the timeline, when
Yes.
the links to the public comments just took me to the form, was there any feedback from?
We received no public comments
Okay,
on the forms, so.
okay. That's fine. That's the only question that I had. It just, there were some links that didn't work in the form, and so I just didn't know if there was any feedback.
Okay.
Board, any other questions? Okay, great, thank you. All right, board, that brings us up to unfinished business. Are there any items of?
Nope.
Nope, I'm so sorry, so sorry. Thank you. Reading off the paper script, not the live script, my bad. We have a new agenda item, open for discussion. Ms. Franklin, did you want to start us off on that?
So after comments that I made last week or 2 weeks ago related to the resignation of one of our employees and the reference to the N-word being used, I have been approached by several folks and students talking about how the N-word is used. And part of that conversation is it's like the and an. So it's used constantly all the time. And even when it is asked to be addressed, it's not being addressed by administrators, by teachers. And this is something that's been ongoing for years. And every time that it's said, this is the way it's going to work, that lasts about 2 hot minutes, and then it reverts back to, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, or I just ignore it, or in some cases even trying to help the Black student understand why they may be part of the problem, why they're called the N-word. And this is real. And we need to know what is happening with this, why administrators are not knowing what to do, and if it is not getting out of the schools to central office, to the superintendent, whoever, when this does happen and it's not addressed, and how we put this into the community to help our students and their parents understand what they need to do to make sure this is being addressed, because they don't know. They believe once they have addressed it with the principal and nothing is being resolved, then nothing's gonna happen. So folks need to be assured that their students are gonna be able to come to Montgomery County Schools and feel safe, not intimidated, not feel bad about themselves because someone chooses to be just ugly, nasty, and ignorant. So we need something clearly understood and in place before the next school year, because this has just gone on way too long. And it is so disturbing to hear that administrators don't know what to do. It's just unbelievable. And that, as I mentioned 2 weeks ago, things seem to be isolated. So if we can just isolate this here and isolate it over here and we're not talking about it, then it's not an issue. And if no one is going further with it, well, then that's good. I experienced this myself, and it just happened to be working with the school system around issues of diversity and understood when to come to address the board about the issues. And then there were some actions taken, but again, it just revolves. We talk about it, and then it's not true. And quite frankly, I'm going to finish in a minute. Having our Director of Equity and our compliance officer be the only people who are holding folks accountable, that's just not acceptable. To be able to understand what's going on in the buildings, we need someone who is in the buildings, having these conversations and understanding what is being done, and that it's being done in accordance to what this board says should be done.
Are you done, Ms. Franklin? I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm finished.
I just want to publicly say that there's no way I would, as a school chief academic officer and superintendent, would tolerate any kind of hate speech or language directed towards anyone, especially that word. It has such negative connotations over a history of injustices and brutality that I would not comment, would not allow that to occur on any case. I wish I could pass a wand and ensure everyone in this county that no one will ever utter that word or say any of that hurtful speech directed at any individuals, especially those of color using that word. But I will guarantee you this. I will do what you asked, Ms. Franklin, and reinforce with everyone that they understand that there's a zero tolerance. There are certain zero tolerance things that are appropriate, and this is one of them. That word has no place in common language and definitely not in our school systems whatsoever. And I'm appalled if school administrators that hear this or somebody brings it to them don't know what to do. That seems like a no-brainer today to me in 2024, and I will do whatever I can to get that word out and support that. Totally unacceptable, and that's a zero tolerance as far as I'm concerned. So I will reinforce that. I will get that out there, and we will hold people accountable. It's totally inappropriate.
Okay. So there needs to be some kind of guidelines set up so they know what they're supposed to do, and some type of reporting for the student, the parent, the employee, so that we can track if indeed there is something happening here. Because it's not now. When a student says it's being used like the and an, that's just almost unimaginable, as you said, in 2024. But when you hear it so often, you know it's happening, and especially when the adults are being called in to say, how do I deal with this other African American teachers and administrators? So this is not just communicating the word. This is putting concrete things in place and making sure that they're happening.
We could definitely do that, and I'd be more than happy to report out on instances and what we've done and what's going to take place, and clearly delineate that you have 100% support on that.
Thank you.
Board, any additional comments on that? What's the current, what is the current student, apologies for asking this off the top of the head since this wasn't on the agenda, but what's the current disciplines assigned to a student if they are found to use that word? That's a good starting point for us as the board, right? Is that clearly identified? If you use this word, this is your discipline.
It's at a minimum, it's inappropriate conduct, student directed to another person, student directed to staff. It depends on sometimes how it was used, whether it reaches the level of hate speech or harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Depends on how far it goes. Inappropriate across the board. Anywhere from detention, suspension to, I don't know if it would be an expulsion just for using that word, but if it's part of a hateful speech category or part of a series of harassment and bullying using that word and other things to perpetuate that, they would come before you. I think it goes all the way up to expulsion. I mean, not for a single utterance, but for depending on the severity and what it's used and what the intention is. Inappropriate across the board, though, at any utterance. I think it's hard for me to say off the top of my head, like, we don't have a policy that specifically says, or a code of conduct says, you use the N-word. It's hate speech, it's bias issues, it's harassment, like I said, and inappropriate conduct across the board.
Right. I think I agree with Ms. Franklin, though, like what you described doesn't sound unreasonable, but there's a lot of opportunities for interpretation in the middle there, right? And different administrators, different people might interpret it differently.
If that word is used, it's a absolute no. And I don't care in what form you might want to use it. I don't care who's using it. Don't use it.
I'm agreeing with you.
Plain and simple.
Right.
And it should be the same consequences, whether it is deemed to be hate or whether it's deemed to be just stupid. Okay?
I don't disagree. So, I mean, I guess like that's one thing that we could consider as a board is if we want to be more specific in terms of specific words, terminology, different types of speech, instead of having granulated levels of discipline depending upon conditions. You know, these are the no-no words, right? If you use them, this is what's going to happen. Something we could consider.
I think we may need to think about drafting a policy associated with this and other hate speech and vulgar language.
It's probably a lot more we could think of if we weren't up on
we do
the
have
dais, right? Yep, I agree.
We do have educational texts that utilize some of these languages too, that we need to incorporate that in the into that policy.
There is a policy about teaching about controversial issues, but just literally searching board docs right now, I'm not finding anything specifically about hate speech, so that probably is.
In the code of conduct, I'm sorry.
It's in the code of conduct.
In the code of conduct, we have, it would be considered under verbal abuse, using that word solely. It doesn't list specific word. We could definitely look at adjusting all of that.
Board, any other comments?
Sure, I could follow up on your question, your comment, the chair. So if this is a discipline matter and there is policy that governs it, that should be quantifiable. So we've received data on other discipline matters that we've been focused on, vaping, et cetera. I'm curious now to see how many students are actually being disciplined for bullying and hate speech, because if we're finding out that no students are being disciplined for it, that would raise a red flag to say that there's a problem with enforcement of current policy. So I think that I'd like to see some of that information come before the board. At least I'd like the administration to pull that information together and for us to have a conversation around what's happening across the division. Because I think we're hearing anecdotal, and that's not to diminish at all these individual stories, but I think in order to address, if we do have a policy, we need to know if it's being enforced, and that's one way to identify whether it's being enforced or not.
We could do that.
And I do recall one time, we had one student who just insisted that this is the behavior they were going to have that did come before the board because of that behavior in this word.
Okay, board, any more discussion? Okay. Thank you. Now we're up to unfinished business. Are there any items of unfinished business to discuss? Okay. Are there any items of new business?
I have one item. So there's been a question, I've asked several questions about committees, and I've asked questions about both board committees, about superintendent committees, and also about the board working with committees. And I'd love for us to have a conversation, whether it's just to take the temperature of the board or to have a longer conversation. I know that there had been concern, particularly with the board and having committees to help us with our work. and to make it less onerous when we do have our meetings, so we're not having 7-hour meetings. I've looked into it a little bit. I know, Chairman Hudson, that I know that you're in favor of it, but I'd really like to have that conversation. I know that some school divisions, some school boards have a standalone policy for committees. And so that's a possibility, because one of the things that I'm noticing is that there's committees that exist I don't know anything about. So there was a presentation, I know, a couple of years ago about whether committees were board committees or superintendent committees. But if that's not identifiable either in policy or in the organization chart, or is not available on the website, how is the community going to know? How are we going to know? And I think for effective administration, that I'd like to see more concentration on our committees, both board, possibly if I'm board committees, but also committees across the county that are part of MCPS.
Okay, great. Duly noted. Any other potential items of new business? Okay, great. We are up to announcements. Are there any announcements?
Shout out to Christiansburg girls softball for winning states and Auburn's boys soccer for winning states.
On June 6th, I took up Ms. Mash's invitation to go out to Falling Branch Elementary School to visit Camp Invention. While I was there, I also got to meet Ms. Mitchell and Mr. Saya, the principal and vice principal there. And Mr. Saya gave me a tour of the Summer Academy as well. And by circumstance, Mr. Wickham was there with his technology interns, who I also got to meet, and it was just really nice to visit another school in the division and see a lot of kids having fun. So thank you for the invitation.
Board, any other announcements? All right. Upcoming school board meetings, we get to take a little bit of a break here. We'll meet again on July 30th, which is technically our first meeting in August, but it's in the end of July. All right. And that concludes our business meeting. Do I have a motion to enter into closed session as authorized by Section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia to discuss a student matter and 2 personnel matters?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Guthrie and Ms. Franklin, any discussion? Ms. Osborne, please call the roll.
Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Yes. Dr. Guthrie?
Yes.
Ms. Barton? Yes. Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Dr. Roundtree?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
7 in favor.
Motion carries. We're now in closed session.